And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Jason Petner. Jason is a student at Penn State Behrend, and I had the opportunity to meet and listen to or hear Jason speak at an event out in Allegheny County at the Allegheny Intermediate Unit a while back, and I was so impressed, and I thought, oh, he would be a fantastic addition to our webinar series to sort of hear from a student who has moved past high school and is now in college and get his insight. So Jason, welcome aboard. I am sending webinar controls over to you.
All right. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Perfect. All right, perfect. So thank you for the wonderful introduction, and I really appreciate that. So hopefully I'm able to follow through with some good information here. So we're going to go ahead and start off and just say that talking about a little bit about the designations as well. So I am currently a senior at Penn State University, the Behrend campus up in Erie. I transferred up here after my freshman year to pursue a couple of designations within finance, and I'm currently a member of the CFA Society of Pittsburgh Financial Literacy Committee. So whenever we talk a little bit about designations, you're going to hear a little bit more about that. Definitely vouch for all the financial designations and all the different designations within the business field. They offer a lot of help. So with this, I'm actually preparing a thesis on financial literacy. One of the major things that we hear about in financial literacy, and I'm sure all of you get to see on a first-hand basis, is the fact that unfortunately financial literacy isn't taught very well, isn't really in many of our curriculums, and because of that we've had a shortfall of financial literacy. So one of the things I want to do is I want to start off and say to put yourself in the shoes of a high school student getting ready to exit high school and enter college. And think about how scary that transition was, and what exactly are you worried about? So you're worried about, is this college the right choice? Can I keep up my academics? What about the social life? I'm moving away from home. You're worried about the success. You're worried about focusing on if you make the right choice academically. But one of the things that you don't focus on is finances. So you don't really think too much about that. You're coming out of high school. You're not really expecting to come into the real world. So now let's move ahead 4 years or however long it takes in order to whenever you're getting ready to graduate. And now we're going to think about graduating college. So what were the thoughts that you had then? So you're thinking about jobs and money, location, which also focuses on money, a house, a car, student loans. All of them have something in common, and that's the financial aspect behind them. So within 4 years, you go from not worrying about any type of financial aspects to having to throw the entire world at you and be on your own, getting ready for student debts, everything that you're taking a look at, all revolves around having money. And it's very difficult because if we put off that fact until it's too late, then it becomes very scary. That's whenever we see the facts of the negative parts of finances. And that's whenever we see that a lot of times portrayed within the media, within the people that we know, is finances are scary. But if you take the right approaches, then everything is very possible. So one of the things we want to talk about first, it's some of those shocking realities. So the starting salary of a new graduate of college versus their student debt, average auto loan debt, and average credit card debt of people within America. One of the big things is you don't really want to spend more than you earn, and you don't want to have a negative net worth. Well, taking a look at all those different numbers, neither one of those really seem to be very good. So one of the things that we have to consider whenever we're moving from high school to college, one of the things that we want to try and prepare high school students for, and every time I hear this from the people I go to class with, from the people all around me, is I really wish I was better prepared for the financial aspects of the real world before making that step to college and then being faced with everything. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is college costs are still rising. That's an unfortunate fact. We're expected to go college inflation about 5%. Consumer debt is rising. So consumer debt is rising at about 6.5% per year over the past 5 years, while wages have gone up no more than 3%. And retirement savings are declining. So one of the things is less people are saving, and a lot of people are scared about that. Given that 86% of Americans have said that Washington needs to give retirement more priority, 79% of people believe that they cannot save enough for retirement. 88% of people believe that that we have a retirement crisis in the U.S. 78% of people plan to stay in their current job as long as possible, and over 50% plan to even have a job in retirement. It's kind of difficult to stomach whenever we think of the American dream, but it's difficult sometimes because of the fact that realistically, if we don't take the right financial steps, then it's going to be tough. We're going to have difficulty reaching retirement, but that's not the overall picture. So that's why a lot of times whenever we see the effects of finance, we have the largest cause of stress in America by over 20% has been financial stress. Also, bankruptcy versus graduation. So one of the major things that we see there is in 2002, more people actually declared bankruptcy than graduated. So that's a scary thing. Student loans may also not be forgiven if you declare bankruptcy unless you show an undue hardship. So those are all very, very scary aspects to look at. And these are all things that if we wait too long to focus on, they could become scary for our possible students. But not all the impacts are bad, and you're going to learn through these 5 things that a lot of my peers really wish they would have known, that time is the greatest asset for each of your students, and by making a difference right now in each one of their lives, you can be the difference. You can be the difference between one of your students having to work until they die, or being able to retire and live a good life, not have to worry about finances every week as far as can they make bills, can they make the payments. It's really, this is now a very, very important time in their life, whether they know it or not, or whether we all know it or not, as it could be the changing factor between what kind of life they live. So finances impact people in a lot of different ways, and by really focusing on it now, and obviously all of you are very focused on this, and thank you for that, because of the fact that once these students graduate and go on to college, they're going to understand these things. They're going to understand the way that finances impact their life, and time is on their side right now. So there's no better time to take a hold of your life and your financial life than right now. So with that, we're going to get into the 5 things that college students wish they would have known as for my peers going into college. So one of them is the value of compounding, and we're going to go more in depth into each one of these. So first is the value of compounding, okay? Subsidized versus unsubsidized loans, the value of a good credit score, the fact that credit cards are not free money. I know that one sounds obvious, but be surprised. And the final one is how to save or create a budget, which not many people do, and unfortunately, we have a lot of undue hardship and a lot of debt because of that fact. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the value of compounding, which this goes directly into time is on your side. There is no doubt about it that time for a high school student is on their side. I know we get told that a lot as younger people, and I know that my teachers have told me that all the time. They said they'd give up a lot to come back and be our age. But one of the major things is we don't really understand that at the time. However, whenever people start thinking about how difficult is it to retire, how difficult it is to have financial success, one of the things is they say, maybe I don't make enough money. So saving $2,000 per year, is that really an unattainable goal? We're gonna learn a little bit more. The average debt from credit cards that the average college student has. So $2,000 really isn't that much. If you work a summer job, if you work a little bit during college, you can make far more than $2,000 per year. So let's just say, which maybe at age 18 this isn't really too realistic, but if you save $2,000 per year, definitely not breaking the bank. From age 18 to age 67, saving $2,000 per year, you're going to end up with $1.15 million in your bank account. It's not too bad, considering the fact that the average American actually only has about $5,000 in their actual bank account, because factoring in the fact that a lot of people don't have retirement accounts. So another thing to take a look at is, what if they wait till age 23? I still feel good about that $773,000, just saving $2,000 per year. That's not an unattainable goal. But as you start moving up the ladder, you start to see that the longer you wait, the harder and harder it becomes to finally get to where you want to be. So at the end of the day, it's time to invest young and invest often. By you really showing your students how to attain these goals, then you're helping them out in the long term by helping them save less but still get the same amount. You don't have to save as much in order to still get the same amount. So invest young and invest often. Talking about whether $2,000 is really a lot, so let's go through a little scenario here. So the average debt of a graduating senior on credit cards, just credit cards alone, is $3,176. It's not including any type of car loans, any type of student debt. $3,176. Seems like a minimal amount, but let's say that you assume you graduated at age 22. So what if I would have invested that $3,176, put it in the stock market, At age 67, that'd be worth $101,000. So by making those choices to, let's say you wanted a TV, you wanted to go out a couple of nights on the credit card, but you didn't have the money at the time, you really honestly gave up almost $100,000 of potential. So one of the big things that we learn within finance and economics is your opportunity cost. So what's your opportunity cost of not understanding finances? Every little incremental, think of that, every $3,000, everything you don't understand about those financial aspects, you're really giving up a pretty solid chance of retirement in each case, or as far as financial success. Because if you have more money in the bank, the less you actually have to worry about making your monthly payment week to week without struggling for your future. So these are some of the little things to keep in mind. A little bit goes a long way within finance. So one of the big things within finance also is subsidized versus unsubsidized loans. So we're going to take a look here. What's the difference? So whether the government pays the interest or not. Doesn't sound like a lot. However, we're going to take a look at the effect here. So if you were to take out a loan whenever you're a freshman, okay, and let that loan sit for $30,000 and you would pay back after college. So in the subsidized loan, the government would help you pay for your interest while you're in college. Payments start after. While you're in the unsubsidized, you're responsible for any interest payment that you don't make. So what's the impact? It only ends up being about $6,000 more, but what's that over the life of the loan? Okay, so we're going to take a look here and say at $200 per month, so we're going to assume a minimum payment. Okay? Then you're actually going to end up spending nearly $15,000 more in 5 more years of payment by the time you amortize in the amount of loan. Okay? And that's with a 5% interest rate on a loan. It's not even that bad of an interest rate. The numbers are staggering with how much money you're actually giving up by not understanding the basics of financial literacy. Next, moving on, so the value of a good credit score. So a lot of students, like I said, have credit cards, but a lot of students have credit card debt. And one of the major things is if you look in the right column, you can see the credit card rates. They're not really helping you out. They're not on your side. If you have several $1,000s of credit card debt, then you're going to be struggling to repay that if every year it's compounding at least 10%. But the other thing to look at is whenever you have a good credit score, whenever you do the right things with your credit, whenever you pay everything back, your credit gets higher, your credit score gets higher, which means that the amount you pay on a mortgage gets lower, your auto loan gets lower. The difference between 13% on an auto loan or almost 6% on a mortgage rate, that's staggering. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars that you could be saving or could be putting into making yourself better in the future. So it's very important to understand that even though we're just worried about credit card debt in the short term, the more debt you take on, the more you miss your payments, the more you do irresponsible things with credit, it can actually hurt you or benefit you. So if you take a look at 2 different students at this time, and one just makes those monthly payments, even if they do nothing more other than have great credit score, they're saving themselves 6% on a mortgage rate, which could be a couple $100,000, which is a major game changer when it comes to financial security. Moving on, credit cards are not free money. I know this one sounded pretty obvious, but the average American doesn't understand that. So the average credit card debt is $16,000 nearly, with the APR of 15%. That's a staggering amount, 15%. So every year, if you have $16,000 compounding at 15%, that's a lot of money. So you're leaving a lot of money on the table every year, and that doesn't go away unless you declare bankruptcy. That money doesn't go away. So it's very difficult to really climb yourself back out of that, which if you start young and understand this fact, you won't build that credit card debt mountain, and it becomes a lot easier to overcome, because you can't really invest until you pay off your debt, or else you're really hurting yourself. Final thing, which I can't stress enough, is how to save or create a budget. So shocking fact is 32% of Americans keep a budget, according to a Gallup poll, and Americans spend $1.22 for every dollar they earn. If you don't understand how much money you're bringing in, how are you supposed to know how much you're spending? How are you supposed to know if they balance? Unfortunately, they don't, which is how we've seen the consumer debt go up so much without really a salary increase. One of the major things is you just have to understand what you're doing, because most people think that a budget's a difficult thing. But at the end of the day, a budget's actually pretty simple to create. It's what you make in versus what you spend. However, this isn't really taught, and without being taught this simple fact, you're really giving up 22 cents for every dollar you earn. Now, imagine that on $100,000, so $22,000. So now you're spending more for every dollar, and you're really giving up the opportunity to make yourself financially successful. So to go through these financial topics, I know we talked about them. We're going to go through, and I'm just going to go ahead and give you about 15 or 20 seconds per question. I'm going to read them out. So keep track of whether you get the answer right or not. So suppose you have some money and you want to put your money into an investment. Is it safer to put it into one investment or multiple? Okay, so it's going to be safer to put it into multiple. So the answer is B for that one. Okay. Suppose over the next years the prices of things you buy doubles, okay, and at the same time your income also doubles. So that will be able to buy less, more, or the same as today. So if they both double, you're going to be able to have the same. Okay, so that's B. Question 3. Suppose you need to borrow $100. Which is the lower amount to borrow back? $105 or 100 plus 3%? Okay, so it's going to be cheaper in this case to borrow 100 plus 3% because that gives us $103. Now suppose you put your money in the bank for 2 years and the bank agrees to add 15% per year to your account. So will your bank add more, the same, or less than it did in the first year in that second year? It's going to add more in this case because of the fact that we talk about compounding interest. So remember we talk about the value of compounding. The more money, so the first year you'll gain that 15%, and then you'll gain 15% on that 15%. That's the beauty of compounding, why we're able to be so successful. Okay, finally, so you suppose you had $100 in a savings account, and the bank adds 10% per year to the account. How much money would you have after 5 years if you did not remove any money from the account? So think compounding interest here as well. So we're going to have actually more than $150 because just like in the last example, that $100 goes up to $110, okay? Then you're earning 10% of that $110, so it goes up to $121. And you can see the chain of events. You're going to end up with more than $150. So keep track of how you did. We're about to talk about this. So this was actually an S&P, so Standard & Poor's did a financial literacy survey across the world. Okay, so 57% of U.S. adults were financially literate. And to be financially literate, all you had to do was be able to answer 3 of these questions. So if you answered 3 or more of these questions correctly, you're financially literate. Now, I'm not sure how each one of you did, but these questions are a complete staple to what financial literacy is about. Understanding how much debt, so whenever we're talking about compounding interest, understanding how that debt compounds as well. So compound interest can work for you or work against you. So that's one of the major things. USA was ranked 14th in the world, and 43% of credit card owners answer the interest questions incorrectly. That's a scary fact. So we talk about credit cards aren't free money, but 43% of credit card owners answer the interest rate question incorrectly, and they have $16,000 in debt at a 15% rate. Now this is a very scary fact. However, your students are in the perfect position right now to avoid these mistakes. Think of the hundreds of thousands of dollars people are just forfeiting by not understanding these simple compounding facts and how much credit cards, how much debt can really have effect on you versus if you were to take that money and save it from a young age. These are the things that your students have. They have that time factor and the fact that once they get their knowledge, they have a real leg up on the rest of the competition. So leading into this financial literacy report card. So what does it take to get this? Okay, so an A would just be a 1 semester personal finance class. A B would be personal finance required as a part of a required course. And then C, D, and F don't actually have any required courses. They just require you to put it as a part of your curriculum, with F having basically no personal finance expectations at all at the state level. So you can see 23.5% of the United States falls under that category of F, including Pennsylvania, California, Connecticut, Delaware, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Washington. I know a lot of great colleges and a lot of really respectable students that come out of those areas. It's a really difficult fact to understand that the financial literacy topics aren't being taught in those areas. Now, we do have a lot of teachers and a lot of schools that go beyond what they're expected in order to do this. But without any type of state mandate, it's really difficult to make all students do this. Therefore, there's almost 50% of the country could walk out of high school without a single bit of financial knowledge. So whenever we talk about the value of compounding, whenever we talk about credit cards, all the things that may seem like second nature to us, if you would have never had them taught to you, think about if you never had a basic algebra class. If you never have that taught to you, how difficult is it for you to understand a complete foreign language and be successful within the financial literacy space? It's next to impossible. So this is something that absolutely needs to be improved. However, and I know the rest of this presentation has been a little grim, but it was to start out with the fact that there is hope. Okay? Because of the fact that numeracy is related to personal wealth. Okay? So with an increased amount of numeracy, which is your ability to handle numbers, okay, leads to a 5.2% increase in personal wealth. So people that answer better numeracy actually have better personal wealth. Okay? Also, literacy and numeracy can be improved through education. So I'm actually writing a thesis, like I mentioned, I'm writing a thesis, and my literature review focused upon if there is really hope for the effectiveness of high school outreach. And both literacy and numeracy can be improved through education, which also leads into financial decisions. So self-esteem also impacts financial decisions. Okay? And financial literacy initiatives help. So let's put this together as the fact that if you have better numeracy and literacy, you can have better personal wealth. Okay? Self-esteem impacts your financial decisions. Financial literacy initiatives help. And most of America doesn't have an understanding of financial literacy. As I said with the earlier survey as well, over 79% of people think that they don't have what it takes to retire, have money for retirement. So there's a self-esteem lacking. Your students right now are in a perfect position and a perfect opportunity to understand what's going on in the area around them and not be a part of the overall worrisome feel about finance. A lot of people have bad expectations about finance because of the fact that they just don't understand the things that it takes to avoid those pitfalls. So just think about how much money we talked about, from the $3,000 on the credit card debt to avoiding the $16,000 overall credit card debt and the 15% interest rates, and how much money you can save from having a good credit score. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. With the average American not having enough money to put any money into a retirement account, think about how much money is being, on average per person, left on the table. You don't have to be rich to be successful. Many professional athletes go broke right after they're done with their professional sport. It's really important to understand that you don't have to be rich to be successful. And number one thing is, it doesn't matter how much money you make, as long as you stay true to yourself and start young, then there is hope for your financial success. There is hope to forget about all the financial stress that most people deal with. And with that, I am actually conducting a survey, so this is year 2 of our survey, in Western Pennsylvania, schools looking at the effects of financial literacy outreach. So taking a look at, it's called a book called The Missing Semester. He's the chair of the Financial Literacy Committee down in the CFA. Gene Natale wrote a book called The Missing Semester about what high school students really should know in this area. So in order to go along with that, we've asked several teachers to go along and complete the book and complete maybe a course that goes along with the book, as well as having members of our CFA Society of Pittsburgh go out and talk to each student, or talk to the classes about the importance of financial literacy topics. So talking about the things that we talked about that are pitfalls that most college students haven't learned. Talking about what debt is, talking about investing, these things. So we're actually studying the improvement between whenever we first started and whenever we actually ended. And last year with confidence and with the objective knowledge of finance, we've actually found that there was an improvement between the pre-survey and the post-survey. And this year I'm actually looking to increase the number of samples to hopefully show the improvement that we can create within high schools and hopefully make a change about the financial literacy scorecard. Get that number up from less F's to more A's. That's really important, and obviously all of you see the value in this. So thank you very much for letting me speak to you today. I am very grateful for the opportunity to come to you today as a college student and really say thank you, and you're really helping out all of your students. So you may not understand how much you're helping your students today, however you will be in the future. So with that, I'd like to open up to any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Really appreciate that. Anybody that would like to share some questions over in the Q&A, we have a couple of minutes to do that. So Jason, I'm curious, in your sort of circle of friends, how many of them would you say had a course in personal finance in high school, like felt like they came to college knowing what they needed to know versus, sort of have been figuring things out?
Yeah, I'd say a very, very low percentage. Even being a finance major, there's a lot about finance that we don't understand. I'd say definitely below 50%, maybe even below 30%, as far as people that actually came to college prepared for the financial financial world after college. And a lot of times it doesn't even hit them until sophomore or junior year that they really need to be focused on this. I have a lot of people that I know are graduating with maybe $70,000, $80,000 in student loan debt and saying, you know what, I'm already in debt, might as well buy a $40,000 car, go out and buy a house. It's just they don't understand the value of this, and it's because of the fact that coming into college you don't really think about that. You're worried about the academics of college, and you kind of lose out on the financial aspect, and that's whenever everything just starts to snowball.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point that you make. You know, a lot of times, and we run into this a lot of times, even sometimes when I talk to folks that are in the business world, they think financial literacy and they think more of like from a corporate responsibility to understand the finances. But even, you know, even people that graduate with a finance degree, you know, a lot of that's sort of on the business side and not as much on the personal finance side. So, you know, I think that's you know, that's huge. A question came in. What drew you, Jason, to the study of financial literacy? What made this, you know, become something that you're so passionate about?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the major things I saw as kind of coming into college, you see within the finance industry, there's a lot of bad thoughts about what exactly is finance, and that's kind of what is portrayed. But whenever you look out and you see some of those staggering numbers about the people that can't retire, that breaks my heart. And I really want people to be successful. And you see a lot of times even things that people can't control, such as maybe a death in the family, which that is one of the major reasons why I came to finance, is regardless of what happens in your life, it is possible for you to be financially stable and focus on other parts of your life. So that was my thing, is no matter what a person faces outside of their finances, that it would really help to not have to worry about that. If 64% of people consider finances to be their top stress, we have a lot of other stresses to deal with, and that's whenever I see like I said, the lack of knowledge about what debt is, and yet you can help yourself to retire by not taking on what may be $100,000 worth of possible savings. Then it is possible for people to retire. It is possible for people to be successful financially. That's why where my passion draws is to show people that you don't have to be rich to be successful.
Thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate the time that you've spent with us this afternoon and the insight that you've shared with our teachers. Really appreciate that, and look forward to see what happens as you go out into the world of work and take this beyond the college setting too. So, thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you. And any other questions, if anybody has afterwards, feel free to send me an email. I think my contact information is on the bio. Always happy to help out. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason.